Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
On this episode, we get to talk with Zach Simons of Northwestern University. He's doing some incredible work up in Illinois. And again, when we talk about pushing the boundaries on what sports field managers are capable of, Zach actually installed a Ironcutter Bermudagrass football field, which has never been done that far north in the United States before. And it truly is incredible because with the way things are done, and he needed to again implement his growth pattern, and he was sprigging it, and within 12 weeks, I think he was saying, Division I sports, Division I football was on the field. And if you watched any of those games or any of those highlights, that field played beautifully, and he did an incredible job. But we got to dive into all those things and everything that he takes care of at Northwestern, at such an incredible university here in the United States. It's just incredible to hear what he has going on and truly what he's accomplishing at, again, such a high level. And it's just truly an honor to get the opportunity to talk to him. And it was great having that chance, and we really appreciate Zach taking the time and look forward to talking to him in the future about everything after his experience, when it comes to running Bermudagrass that far north. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Welcome back to the 97th episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host with your co-host Liz Rice and producer Dakota Garber. Today we have on the Director of Sports Turf and Grounds at Northwestern University, Mr. Zach Simons. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, we're working with technology that we apparently don't know, so that's always good.
Exactly.
But I'm so excited to talk to you about what you have going on. Obviously, you are pushing the boundaries of what, sports field management truly is. So just to give everybody a little backstory, you installed an Ironcutter Bermudagrass in the heart of Chicago, which is Illinois on the northern part of the United States. Could you sort of talk to us about what kind of went into that decision and why you sort of was like, you know what, we're going to do it and we're going to see how this goes, and just be that sort of pioneer that's bringing Bermudagrass to the great north,
Yeah. So I'm going to go back a few years before, to lead up to that. So I started at Northwestern in July of 2017. And in our football field, it was a cool season, Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass mixture on type of sand. It was last resodded in 2003. So it has become predominantly perennial ryegrass over, that 20 years now. So 2017, my first season, I think the field played well for the first few games, and then some chunking out started to happen in October. And then in 2018, my first full year, a lot of chunking out happened. So we started looking for solutions, and we ended up doing some dry ejecting to try to stabilize the sand that was there. So we did that 3 times for the 2019 season, and the field played better, and we thought we had a solution, and played well again in 2020. But in 2020, our first game was also October 24th. And then last year, 2021, after 3 years of dry ejecting, we had the worst chunking out that we've had so far. So I'm looking for solutions to try to solve this issue, to create a stable surface. And last year, we find out that we're going to get a new stadium, that after the 2023 season, the current stadium is going to be torn down. And so we only have 2 seasons left in the current stadium. And
which is beautiful, by the way. Your new stadium looks beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. And then talking with the director of facilities, we have to do something. And, it's urged well, you need to figure out a solution without spending that much money. So sodding is not really an option. So you either have to phrase mow and seed, or you could phrase mow and sprig. And knowing this season that our schedule was front loaded, that I was concerned if seed would work. So I had seen what, or paid attention to what Field Source Ohio was doing, Ryan DeMay in Columbus, where
Awesome
they're
guy.
sprigging high school football fields and they're playing on them like every day for 2 months. Before I got to Northwestern, I worked for a company called J&D Turf out of Indianapolis, and in 2017 we transitioned a field from cool season to Northbridge and Lafayette. And they played on it every day from September to October, and the field played well. So I started looking at temperatures in Evanston, Chicago area compared to like Lafayette, Indiana, like Indianapolis, even a place like Blacksburg, Virginia. And it's like, well, wait a second, we're just as hot, if not hotter, in July and August as those places, but we cool down faster. And with our location being in the heart of the city and so close to Lake Michigan, in the fall, our night times are actually a little bit warmer than a place like Lafayette or a place out in the country, because the urban heat island and Lake Michigan, keep our nighttime temps, slightly warmer. So, I mean, even today, I was just looking before we got on, and we haven't hit 32 degrees yet overnight. We've only been down to like 35, because we're in the city.
We've already hit 32, so that's awesome.
So it's like, well, this is possible. I think this is possible. And we only have one winter to get through, so it's not like we're doing this every year. So it's like I'm willing to do this giant experiment that I'm really confident will work. And so far it's worked out great so far.
Yeah, and I love how you said experiment, because it truly is. It's something that no one really knows other than maybe a Ryan DeMay, when it comes, especially when you're talking. I love how you're talking about the lakefront. I have family in Chicago, so like you're speaking like gets very, very hot and humid over the summer from the times that I visited, and being able to see that and sort of see what you've done is truly incredible. What was sort of the process once you made that decision, sort of dove right in? Sprigging is not common in college sports, so what was that sort of decision making process? And could you sort of go through what the actual sprigging planning timeout? I think you had a game 10 weeks after you sprigged, correct?
12 weeks.
Okay, so yeah, that'd be great. Sorry.
We knew sodding wasn't an option because of the cost. So then it was, okay, let's figure out what variety to go with. And spoke with Brian at Purdue. I went down to Purdue last October to see he had a little plot of Tahoma and a plot of Ironcutter, like right next to each other. Asked him some questions, spoke to some people throughout the Midwest, on their thoughts. And eventually decided to go with Ironcutter. And it turns out it was actually the closest Bermuda to us. The sod farm we purchased it from, Columbia, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, is closer than the closest to Tahoma, which was in southern Indiana. So, yeah, so we knew just for cost reasons, like sprigging was the most effective option. And then talking with Adam Russell with Mountain View Seeds, we came to 1,000 bushels per acre rate. I thought about going a little bit higher, but Adam, said it should be good at that amount. So Northwestern is a school that's on the quarter system. So fall classes don't start until September 20th, but then the spring quarter doesn't end until like June 8th, something like that. So the second weekend in June, we host graduation inside the football stadium. So we put out TerraPlast, 40 to 50,000 square feet over the field. Field's 80,000 square feet, so like half the field is covered with TerraPlast roughly. So we know, like, okay, we can't do anything before that. So then I look, in between graduation and the first football game, okay, we have 12 weeks. And looking at how long it took for us to do a grown in Lafayette in 2017 and how long the Ryan DeMay's growings were taking, it was like, okay, 10 weeks. All right, we have 12 weeks. This should work. And, August is, at least the past couple of years, it's been really hot in late August. We should be good up until that point. So that's, how we, just like we lucked out that our first home game wasn't until after Labor Day this year too. So like that helped us out too.
And from what I've seen, because I've paid close attention to like the games and the playability, it's been incredible. I mean, like you said, like it has played so well. And from what we see on television and pictures after the game, there really isn't much damage at all. What has been sort of your experience get through the season? Obviously, what game are you guys in right now? You just had one last week.
We've played 4 games.
Okay. And you have 6 in total?
Correct. So we had 3 in a row in September. We had a week off. Then October 8th, we hosted Wisconsin. Right now, we're in a 4-week break. We host Ohio State. I think it's November 4th or 5th. It's whatever the first Saturday in November is. And then we host Illinois the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Gotcha. Perfect. So you knew going in, obviously it gets pretty cold, and thank God you guys haven't hit 32 yet, which is awesome. Because we're actually gonna be removing our field. So we didn't overseed, so it's nice and brown right now. So nice and dormant. What has been sort of your prep for this winter, going in not just for years to come, but just sort of the rest of the season in that late November game?
Right. So we have grow covers, and we actually had to use those during the grow-in process. We had a mild summer, which wasn't helpful. It seemed like we kept getting north winds off the lake. So we're a mile from Lake Michigan. Our days kept being like 78, 79. It's like, it felt wonderful out, but I'm like, I wish it was 85. So
Yeah.
we actually had to use those in August. For probably 10 days out of a 14-day period to like push the final grow in. So we use the grow covers for 6 days in between game number 3 and game number 4, like when we had that break to push some recovery, because after 3 in a row on like 15-week-old Bermuda grass, and then it'd been overseeded, like nothing was really growing at that point. So like covers went back on, pushed some growth. And then last week, so we seeded again, and the covers went back on Thursday. And I'll probably take them off for this weekend because we're going to get in the 70s. So it'll give us a chance to cut, touch up logos, top dress. But I've also been overseeding. So put out a pallet of perennial ryegrass, 30 pounds per thousand. We started in August 24th with the first seeding. And then so that was 2.5 weeks before the first game. And then after the first, so I didn't seed going into the first game because it was so dense. It's like, well, I don't have the right type of seeder anyways to do this correctly.
Yeah.
Like I have to broadcast. I just don't have the right equipment. But so I after the Duke game, I was like, okay, it'll get thinned out a little. We can get seed in there. So I seeded after the Duke game, after game number 2, and then more like a higher seeding rate after game number 3, and then top dress that in. And then I put out the rest of the seed after the Wisconsin game. And I just like brush and work that in, and then I'll top dress again this weekend. So using blankets to try to keep the soil temps up. We're using, overseeding, and I'm also, going to use, paint or pigment if I have to, just to keep color for TV.
You got to do it,
Right.
Everyone says it's cheating. No, it's not. It's industry practice, everybody,
Yeah.
With everything, obviously, it's been a big, again, experiment. Everything's going great. Could you sort of discuss the rest of your facilities, sort of what you're covering, what type of grass you're growing, and sort of just the overall facility that you're managing at Northwestern?
Right. Okay. So we have 2 natural grass surfaces, our football stadium and our softball field. So 110,000 square feet of like maintained natural grass. Softball's Kentucky bluegrass. Football is now Bermuda grass field, but only 64,000 of that's Bermuda grass. I kept the perimeter cool season grass because that wasn't the issue. It was a plain surface. So we kept the perimeter cool season and just made the field Bermuda. And then we have a lot of artificial turf. So We have two campuses. The athletics campus is a mile inland, and then the main campus, Northwestern, sits on Lake Michigan. So on the athletics campus, we have our baseball field, which is all artificial. There's an indoor facility there next to the baseball field, which softball uses as well. It's like a 20,000 square foot turf field, completely netted, where they can hit live. 5 indoor cages, baseball, 6 turf mounds in there. We built a clay mound for softball to pitch off of in the wintertime in there. That's used basically, they use it all the time, basically, except in June and July. And then on the lakefront, we have our soccer lacrosse field, which is next to our practice football field. But football also practices on the soccer lacrosse field. So we have to paint lines and race those every single week, just because we're so landlocked. And those are artificial turf. There's a field hockey field that sits next to that. And then a giant indoor 100,000 square foot artificial turf indoor field, which is used by every single sport.
You say everyone under the sun.
Rec and also, so our recreation is part of our athletic department. So rec uses the indoor for intramurals. They also use the outdoor soccer practice football field for intramurals. The band practices on the football field that's by the lakefront. So it's used by many different people, like throughout the year. And then we're also, our grounds staff is a facility staff. So we help inside the arena doing changeovers, setting up for wrestling, setting up for volleyball. We have 2 big fencing meets in our indoor football building every single year. So we lay down 50,000 square feet of TerraPlas, help get the fencing strip set up. So that happens every October and February. So there's a lot that we do just besides the natural grass and the grounds.
Absolutely. Now it sounds like there's a lot going on, a lot to manage. Who makes up your staff? And obviously you sort of discussed a little bit sort of the responsibilities of setting up, getting everything ready for things from wrestling events, obviously to football games. What is sort of the overall facility management of you and your staff?
Well, there's 4 of us that are full-time, and so I primarily oversee the athletics campus. There's another person who primarily oversees lakefront campus, and there's like 2 guys that jump back and forth and help us that are the full-time employees. But then we also have 6 to 8 part-time employees that we bring in as well, and they help us clean up, do garbage, help maintain the facilities, cut grass, string trim, etc. throughout the year. So there's, probably 10 to 12 of us for at least 9 months out of the year that are doing the maintenance, and we're split up between the 2 campuses, and based on what sport, needs the most work at that time, that's where we're spending most of our time.
Absolutely. I think you said a few years ago is when you first started Northwestern. Could you sort of talk to us sort of how you found the turf industry, how you got to this point in your career, different opportunities that you've had in your career, and just what sort of, again, brought you to Northwestern, and again, doing incredible things like the Bermuda field?
So, well, in high school, like as in my senior year, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I played a lot of baseball at that time, and baseball was important to me. And we were on vacation, and my aunt had brought up, she had seen a story about David Miller and like how he would, become the groundskeeper for the Boston Red Sox, etc. And like at that time, it's like, oh, like my favorite sports team's the St. Louis Cardinals. So like at that time, I'm thinking, I could be like a groundskeeper for the St. Louis Cardinals. So, so my senior year, going into my like freshman year of college, I figure out, okay, that's what I want to do. I went to junior college in my hometown of Quincy, Illinois, for a year and a half. I played baseball the first year, and I did some horticulture gen eds. And then during that freshman year, I figured out like where I wanted to go, and so I ended up, deciding on Iowa State. good turf program, only 4 hours from my hometown. So transferred up there in 2009, midway through the year. And so I started working on golf courses. Um, my first turf job was working at the municipal golf course in Quincy, Illinois. And the superintendent, actually a family friend, I played baseball with his son, and the superintendent's brother played baseball with my uncle. So like he knew I was going into turf, and he was, giving me lots of different jobs on the golf course, lots of different opportunities, and would take me under his wing and explain like why some stuff was being done. So I had that idea at least going when I transferred to Iowa State. And then my first internship, I interned at Arcadia Bluffs in northern Michigan, a high-end public course that sits on the shores of Lake Michigan, in northern Michigan, which was a great opportunity. And then I decided I wanted to give sports turf a try. So I did. I interned for the Iowa Cubs for a summer, and then that was the end of my undergraduate. Towards the end of my undergraduate, Tim Van Loo arrived at Iowa State, and I decided I wanted to do this Master of Agriculture program where I could like have a part-time job on campus and do like a grad program type thing. So I actually did 2 summers as an intern for the Toro Company, working in their cat department, and worked with like a mobile sensing device that you drive across a golf course and take readings, and some other stuff with that. Like they had 2 agronomists on staff, and I was their intern for 2 summers. But then during the school years, that's when I started working for the Iowa State athletic department, and that's what one led me to enjoy like college athletics and want to go down that route. So then after college, I was a head groundskeeper at in Lisle, Illinois, at a Benedictine Sports Complex, which is a D3 college. Then after that, I moved to Indianapolis, worked for G&D Turf as the maintenance person, where I'd go around and spray and fertilize, aerify, top dress, etc. But would also help with some construction projects. So I got to see both sides of that, get a lot of experience with lots of different maintenance practices and products. And then the opening at Northwestern happened. Tim Van Loo had come from Northwestern, so there was a connection there, and that like helped open the door here.
I love that. I love how you were talking about how you got every single aspect in your work, working for Toro, seeing that side of things. The field construction is such a big thing, obviously making the decisions to go and spray and everything. So it's truly awesome to sort of see that culmination. And Tim Van Loo, what a guy, one of the best guys I've known in the industry. So that's really cool. What was sort of, and again, I guess it's sort of a redundant question since you mentioned Tim. What were some of the guys or girls along the way that had a really big impact on how you sort of became, again, the head sports field manager and how you sort of conduct yourself as a field manager?
Yeah, just like supervisors along the way. That first golf course superintendent, family friend, like there's stuff that he, passed along, or would say that I like still remember to this day, like working with Tim, working with Tim as part of a student staff and getting his advice. And when I'll still call him, occasionally sometimes for advice and like what to do in different situations. And then Jamie Mayringer, who started J&D Turf, like I lean on him still quite a bit, especially with the sprigging project, because he was the person that led the sprigging projects that we did. The 2 that I was a part of, in Indianapolis. So, he was one of the persons I called, like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Like bouncing ideas off him. But also, just like the director of facilities that we've had, like Marcus Tattles, who is at Northwestern but has gone to Miami. Like, he was good at like building confidence, to like, have confidence taking your ideas to administrators and explaining it to the rest of the department. So like, you showed like, what you're doing, and you guys aren't here just as laborers. And even my boss now, like Scott Airy, just, like see how he operates throughout the department and learn from him. So just different, peers throughout the industry or supervisors that I have, like, look to them for examples and, ask them for questions and advice throughout the way.
Absolutely. And you sort of segued perfect into my next question. Obviously, you had to make decisions based on the needs of the athletic department. Well, we can't do this, we can do that. And you made the best plan possible. What has it been like, sort of, to be a part of that athletic department and having those relationships with, say, the athletic director or one of the athletic directors over the certain sports? What has it been like for you, sort of culminating that relationship and to have a positive workplace for you and your staff? Like you said, we're way more than just laborers. What has it been like developing those relationships in your time at Northwestern?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked to build a relationship with the coaching staffs for like the sports I work with the most, so that they trust what we're doing and know that we'll get it done and do it in a way that they expect. Um, like so baseball's in my background, so the baseball and the softball staff are like the two, that's the easiest for me to have a relationship with, because I did college baseball for a little bit, so I understand like why they're doing fall ball, why they're doing this, why they're doing that, like why every every day is important to them. Even, in the groundskeeper's mind, it's like, well, it's October, like you're for
It
6
is
months, like
December
why does
5th.
that
Why are
be?
we out here?
Yeah, and even yeah. So, and even like I don't communicate with the lakefront sports as much, but just like understanding that every sport is, that important to that team and that coach, and you need to do what you can to create like the best experience you can for them, because like most college sports, like this is like their highest level. So like it's, showing them you want to create the best experience possible for them.
Absolutely. Um, I sort of wanted to discuss this with you, obviously, being in Chicago and with the different extremes when it comes to temperatures and everything. What has been some of the most difficult aspects of managing fields up there? We're located in Northern Virginia, so it's kind of like we have both sides, and it's way different in the sense of humidity, certain things. You have the lakefront. There are so many aspects that you've already discussed. What has it been like for you to understand those hardships? And what would you say is sort of maybe like the top three or four that have been sort of those barriers that you've jumped over to be as successful as you have been there?
Um, I think it's just understanding, or as I've been here now for 5 years, and kind of getting an understanding of how the weather's gonna. It is somewhat unpredictable on the lakefront, but like there is still somewhat of a pattern that it follows, and it just seems so like, so the spring, it's really slow to wake up, and like we'll hit 55-degree soil temps in early April, but then we usually don't get to 65 until like late May. And even like this year, it was like super slow to wake up until like the week we sprigged, honestly. So like that hurdle, it's been figuring out how to get the softball field to like be green and be growing, throughout that season. So that it looks good and plays well for them. I mean, football, it depends on the year. We had a couple of years where like my second, my first and my third year here, like lake effect snow. We had a lake effect snowstorm in November, the day before a Purdue game, and I was watching the news, and it's like, oh, it's just going to be like a half an inch to an inch, and it's going to be over 30 degrees. So I'm like, okay, it'll melt, and then like on Friday, it just starts coming down, and next thing you know, we have 2 inches of snow on the field, and you're like, okay, we have to
Thank
get
you,
this off
Mother Nature.
tomorrow night. So I mean, thankfully that day, the next, like we used the buffalo blower to blow the snow off, but and then by the time we got to game time, it was like in the upper 30s, low 40s, so it melted, which was fortunate. But even like understanding, we had a like this is a free cold week that we've had. We had one in November, and then we got the warm wet snow, and then the temperature dropped to like the teens overnight. So we have a rain tarp, and like Nick, I had been here for a few years at that point. So it's like anticipating that's going to happen. So it's okay. We need to tarp the field because we're going to have to plow it because we're going to get 3 to 4 inches of snow tomorrow, and it's going to turn to ice. Like that was the biggest challenge, honestly, like getting the stadium ready for a game that week when it didn't get above freezing until Friday. And so just learning the weather patterns throughout the years and understanding like when you're gonna have these issues, and when it's primarily in the fall and spring, like when it's like snow could stick around. Like I haven't run into, I knew why I was having chunking out issues with the humidity, and like I feel good about that now with the Bermuda and the bluegrass softball field that we have. Like it's not an issue, but it's usually like the fall and the spring when you can have like a freak snowstorm on like a April weekend or like an early November. Like that's the biggest challenge.
Absolutely. God bless you, because I couldn't do it. I could not handle that much snow and making sure it's ready. So, something that, again, I love asking the people that come on is because, again, there are so many different things that go on and specific to, again, Northwestern and you. What is it that has made you so passionate about work like this, where, I mean, it is a daily grind and you're always working hard to ensure player safety and, and making sure your crew's all set, making sure they're good in health and everything. What has been sort of your driving force behind being a sports field manager?
It goes back to my days of when I was playing sports and playing baseball, in Quincy and around Quincy and in junior college. I didn't, I mean, the fields that I played on weren't very nice. So I want to learn how to create a nice field, for people to play on, because it was, extremely rare, if we got to play on like a nice field that was striped up or mowed short or like had the right infield mix or didn't have a built up on the infield. So, you know, that's my driving force is I want to create like as nice a field I can for the people that are playing on it, because that's something whenever you got that chance to play on the nice field, it was you're like, this is big time, this is really cool. And it's your chance to provide that for the athletes that use the fields.
Absolutely. With that, obviously, we do a lot of work for student athletes and for that purpose of safety. Have you been able to develop some really cool relationships with some of the athletes that have gone through Northwestern, just to sort of, in a sense, give them an idea of who you are as a sports field manager and the work that you do to ensure, again, the best experience possible beyond safety, and just sort of, again, when you talk about Saturday night at Northwestern, it's a big deal. It's not anything that people are going to be like, oh, okay. Like, it's a result of you and your staff working hard and dedicated to creating the best service possible. Have you been able to make relationships with those student athletes that maybe go on to the NFL or on to higher level sports?
I mean, but not personal relationships. Like the players see us around working and they understand who we are and like what we're trying to accomplish, and they'll thank us. But not a lot of like personal relationships where they come back and like will like tell stories about their experiences in the professionals. Um, so and
Gotcha. Um, Last couple of things, and you can say we're not going to talk about it because you're not allowed to or not. Obviously, the new stadium's coming in. Have you been privy to anything when it comes to your surface and everything that's going to be going in for you? When it comes to, again, I didn't know what the number was, but it's millions and millions of dollars for that stadium. Anything specific that you're aware of for the grounds crew?
I am, but I'm not going to comment on it because I
Totally
don't
fine. Totally
that
fine. I
part's been
didn't want to.
announced.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to say anything. I don't want to get you in trouble or anything. Anything that you're excited about, not personal to that, but sort of seeing that growth in your programs and your facilities.
Just the opportunity to build a facility, be a part of like building a stadium and a new shop, new equipment, etc. Like starting from scratch in a sense. Like we have a lot, like our shop is old, it's kind of an afterthought. We have a lot of old equipment. So, in that sense, it's cool to like, someone start over and have a brand new space and get the right equipment that you need for that and set that space up correctly to run efficiently and be clean, organized, etc.
Gotta love that. That's awesome. That's great. You guys are gonna get that space. Um, so we sort of wrap up on these last two questions, which again, it's great to hear the different viewpoints and the experiences from sports field managers. First, if there was one thing that you wish you knew, and again, it doesn't have to make anything better, easier, whatnot for your career, but if there was one thing you wish you knew going into this industry, what would that one thing be and why?
Um, I mean, it's taken a few years for me to like, get to this point, figure it out, but it's, eventually you have to understand you're making the best decisions or you're making decisions based on that organization. Like, personally, like you wish that all these fields were natural grass or this and that, and we had all
Yeah.
this other equipment, but like from the organization's point of view, maybe it makes sense for them to do it this way than that. And you have to, come to that viewpoint when you work for an organization that you eventually have to make those decisions for the organizations, based on what they want instead of like what personally, like what your personal goals are. You kind of have to adjust. So, it's taken, a few years to get to that point.
Absolutely. Um, for students like mine in my program who are high school students who are looking to maybe go into this industry, what would be your best words of advice for them when it comes to moving forward and sort of pursuing a career in sports field management?
I would say, go, try an internship like in a different part of the country or a different area, get away from home, try out something different. I mean, I've only been in the Midwest, but still like Northern Michigan was different, a lot different than Quincy, Illinois, but like still like, it would have been cool maybe to go to California or the East Coast or try something different. And also, try like different types of facilities. You could try golf course, sports fields. And if, within that, you could try like the high budget place that has everything, but then also you need to see the other side of that, like the sports field or the golf course doesn't have everything. And the first golf course I worked at, we would go out and we'd like go out and figure out how to fix the irrigation heads like out in the field, with the parts that we had. Then we go to Arcadia Bluffs, but the head doesn't work. You just rip it out and you put a new head in. It's just like, I was like, wait,
Gosh, this is amazing.
yeah. And even like, from Northwestern to Iowa State, like, Iowa State's like has a turf school there with like a little bit better equipment and like facilities to maintain the athletic fields. Northwestern's not like it's like just like the equipment and the space that you have, the facility like the grounds crew has a lot different than the what Iowa State has, or even like what Purdue has, which has a turf school. They're behind it. So just seeing those different sides of it, can prepare you for so when you get out in the field and maybe you don't have all the resources that you had when you were at the places for the internships, and also like doing different internships, you get different opportunities to try things. When I worked at Arcadia Bluffs, I was spraying greens fairways and fertilizing fairways. And I think my like first day on the job, I was like fertilizing greens with an assistant superintendent. But then I went to the Iowa Cubs and like I rarely mowed and I never sprayed. So like all that spraying experience I got like came from a golf course or, a place where they're like, okay, intern, go do this, or like they're like nobody wanted to spray tees because they're on cliffs, and it was like, okay, send the intern out to spray the tees because
go send the intern off the cliff, right?
yeah.
Well, that's incredible. And I couldn't agree with you more on the going out and seeing different things, and the different levels and the different budget types. It's something that I think is way underviewed, especially even like the kids who are in turf programs now. They're all looking for that big job. They're all looking for the big internship. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been incredible talking to you. And I want to wish you best of luck with the winter ahead with the Ironcutter. You heading out to Utah in the winter for SFMA?
I hope to. I haven't planned on it yet.
Gotcha.
But I hope to, yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll see you out there. All right.
No, and yeah, thank you for having me. Like what you do with your high school turf program is incredible. The podcast
Thank you
is
so much.
incredible. So I've listened to a few episodes, tons of good advice that, you can learn from that. So
And thank you for being one of those people that provide it. So it's truly I can't thank you enough.
yeah, thank you.